The Oracl Network.
Hey there, listener. My name is Jan Benz, and I'm the creator and host of Wicked Crimes South Africa. Wicked Crimes South Africa is a true crime podcast that focuses on true crimes in South Africa who have a link to the occult or supernatural. So if a cult did it, if it was part of a ritual, or there was some spooky connection, you'll find it all on this podcast. To give you a taste of this podcast, here's a little extract from our second episode, Mob Injustice, the murder of Mandla Sibiya. It is during this meeting, the Induna would tell the community that the Isangoma he consulted revealed the names of Malabongwe's murderers, and the motive behind this was inspired by witchcraft. The Induna did request that the community members not be armed for this meeting, but due to his neglect in informing the police about his intentions for this meeting and what he would divulge, no real security was planned for the meeting, and several community members managed to sneak weapons in. It was in this meeting, of what sounds more like a traditional court than a community meeting, that Mandla Sibiya was accused of being one of the murderers, and was subsequently brought forward and asked to answer for his crimes. So, if you like what you heard over there, we are currently available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts, and we're coming to more platforms soon. So hop on over and give us a listen.
Hey, Rainbow Warriors. This is my disclaimer. Beyond the Rainbow is a true crime podcast. It's not suitable for young children, and maybe not even for some adults. I tend to swear like a sailor, and I'm kind of proud of that. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, this is my second disclaimer for this episode. This episode will be of LGBTQ youth suicide. Suicide is never easy to talk about, but the circumstances around what happened to these victims to make them feel so much pain, it's important to discuss, and it's important to have their stories heard. Should this topic prove triggering, please take care of yourself and skip the episode. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors, and welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. I'm your host, CJ, and this is the first episode of Season 6. Before I jump into it, let's take care of some housekeeping. I have exciting news! The Oracl Network just made me their network media curator. It's a fancy title, and I'm proud to own it. Basically, I'm in charge of putting out eye candy visuals on the socials for our network. And I got my mug and bio on the network's website. If you want to take a look, it's at theoraclnetwork.com. That's TheOracl3 network.com. Check me out. Y'all should know where to find me on the socials by now. But you can visit my website at beyondtherainbowpodcast.com. And if you'd like to help support this one-woman show, on my site are 2 links. One is to my TeePublic merch store for some cool shirts, mugs, or what have ya, and the other is to my Buy Me a Coffee page. I'm using that site as kind of a blog because I'm also posting some short true crime stories for your reading pleasure. Another great support of the show is spreading the word and telling friends to listen. And lastly, leaving a 5-star review where you listen to your podcasts helps this show gain visibility to stories that should be heard by all sexual and gender identities. If you end up visiting my website, you'll also find a huge list of missing but not forgotten LGBTQ+ members. This episode's missing is 22-year-old Yazine Barrett from New Jersey. Yazin's a high-functioning autistic man. He's between 6 foot and 6'2" in height. He's slender, about 154 pounds, and he sometimes wears glasses. He's a black man with brown eyes, and he also has close-cropped black hair with short little dreadlocks, it looks like. Yazin was last seen on May 19th of this year in the Toscana residential development off Fort Plains Road. Yazin has gone missing before, but only for a few days, and last time he was found in New York. This time Yazin didn't take his cell phone or his wallet, and that's a very strange thing for him. He almost always has it with him. A search around the outside and inside of his home has been conducted, but no leads have been revealed. If you might have any information that could lead to finding Yazin, please call the Howell Police Department at area code 732-938-4111. I know I picked an uncomfortable topic for this episode. I've actually put it off for the past 3 seasons. I rewrote it 3 times and I re-recorded it 3 times. It's said that the 3rd time's a charm, but I don't think that really applies here, because it's still one of the hardest episodes I've ever had to get through. I had a young lady who worked for me for 6 years. Her name was Stacy. Stacy was adorable and so artistic. She was an awesome employee, and I considered her my friend. My staff at the time was actually more like my family, and we were all very close. Stacy even called me Mama CJ. She'd babysit my daughter for me when I needed her to. My daughter just loves Stacy. The kids at the recreation program love Stacy too. But one Friday, February morning, Stacy came to work for her 2.5-hour shift before school started. She seemed fine. She came in with her ritual Pepsi can in her hand and her cute little smile. She left after her shift was up that morning, and when the kids all went to school, nothing really seemed out of the ordinary with her to me. The following morning, Saturday, I was on my way to go play golf. I got a phone call from Stacy's sister telling me Stacy was dead. Stacy had taken her own life the Friday after she left work. Her poor mom was the one who found her. I can't even imagine finding your child like that. A little part of my world ended that day. Guilt and sadness overcomes you. I had just seen her an hour before she did it. If only I had known anything was wrong, that she was in so much pain, surely I could have done something to help her. In truth, I don't know if any of us could have done anything to help. Stacy's mental state was affected by a bad combination of a couple of prescription pills she took. Stacy was also feeling the hurt over a boy she loved, and who knows what else. I've always wondered if the person who has taken their own life, if they'd only known the grief they had caused everyone around them who loved them, would they still have done it? The victims in the episode today also suffer from mental anguish. I believe most, if not all, of their deaths could have been avoided if only those who had the means to would have stepped in and did something about it. Most of us have heard about the Trevor Project, but for those who haven't, the Trevor Project's a program that provides all kinds of resources and help to LGBTQ+ youth under the age of 25. It was started in 1998, and it was named for a one-man play called Word of Mouth. The play was then turned into a 20-minute movie about a fictional young teenager named Trevor. I'll put the link to the movie in the show notes. The movie depicts Trevor's struggle realizing he's gay, and then he has to deal with his peers who tease him and parents who don't accept his sexual identity. I won't tell you any more about it in case you want to go watch it. The Trevor Project offers suicide prevention and crisis help. Along with these, which is the main focus of starting the whole program, it offers classes and also some job training. According to Trevor Project statistics from March of 2021, Every 45 seconds in the world, one LGBTQ plus teenager will attempt to kill themselves. This is horrifying. And that means since I've started talking to you this episode, approximately 12 LGBTQ plus kids have tried to end their lives. That is not acceptable. Some of these kids are ostracized by their family. Many are bullied by their peers. They feel helpless, hopeless, and they don't know what else to do. If we bring these stories to light, we might be able to help someone. Perhaps an LGBTQ plus youth, one who is considering suicide as an option. We might even be able to enlighten a teacher or a school administrator that action needs to start with them, instead of turning a blind eye on the situation, just hoping it'll all go away. Maybe we can encourage a parent who doesn't want to accept that their child's gay, bi, or trans to realize that their actions are not helping their child's mental situation. One of the youngest LGBTQ plus victims of suicide I found was a 9-year-old boy from Denver, Colorado. Jamel Miles lived with his 2 older sisters and their single mom in an apartment. It wasn't located in the best area of the city, but it was all they could afford. While the home they lived in might have been cluttered, showing an obvious sign of children living there, the home was full of love and support. One of Jamel's favorite things to do was to visit and play at parks. He loved the outdoors and socializing with other kids. If Jamel saw a child who seemed shy or afraid, Jamel would make that child feel welcome until that child was playing with all the other kids too. Jamel was a Renaissance man. He was interested in so many things. He loved anime, playing video games. He liked to take selfies. He loved playing dress-up in his sister's clothes while wearing his mom's makeup. He loved to read, drawing, skateboarding, and making YouTube videos. Jamel dreamed of being a famous YouTube influencer. He wanted to make a bunch of money so he could buy his mom and his family a house. In 2018, Jamel told his mom, "I'm gay." His mom answered how any parent hearing those words should answer, "You're my son and I love you." Jamel smiled and he told his mom he loved her too, and they both went about their summer day. It sometimes takes people years to come to terms with their sexual identity, and some people never do. This little guy at the age of 9 was confident in who he was, and his mom was wonderfully supportive. Jamel's mom worked her ass off in a hardware store to pay the rent on their apartment, put gas in their old minivan, and food in their bellies. If there was any extra little bit of money, she'd take the kids to a discount movie theater, or she'd treat them to pizza. As a single mom with 3 kids and 1 paycheck, money was always tight. But Jamel's mom loved her kids more than life itself, and she'd do anything for them. She knew how important it was for her children to experience things that their friends got to experience. Jamel was getting ready to start back at school soon. He was going to be a 4th grader. Jamel was excited to get back to school to see his friends, and he wanted to tell them he was gay. The first day back at school, Jamel's so-called friends were less than thrilled when Jamel came out to them. They laughed at him, picked on him, and called him hurtful names. Jamel had always lived in a bubble of love and acceptance until now. That evening at home, Jamel began acting a little differently. At first, his mom thought the problem was him getting back into the routine of waking up early for school, but she asked him what was going on at school. He told her that some of the kids weren't accepting the new Jamel, and they were being mean to him. The middle sister, who was only a 1.5 years older than Jamel, It seemed like she was being picked on by classmates too. The school's solution was to let the sister find Jamel, and she could go sit with him in his class until she felt ready to join her own class again. Instead of dealing with the bullies, the school made the younger brother the one that was responsible for his sister. Something just seems off about that, doesn't it? Keep this in mind because I'm going to talk more about this school in a little bit. The second day back to school, the kids were still calling Jamel derogatory gay names, and they were saying really mean things to him. And his sister was still joining him in his class because of her bullies. The third day back at school, Jamel was working on his classwork when all of a sudden a girl was behind him. She pulled his hair and she kicked his chair out from under him. This caused Jamel to fall to the ground. That was it. That was Jamel's breaking point. Jamel lost his temper. He stood up and he pushed the girl. The girl went and tattled to the teacher. And of course, Jamel was the one to get into trouble. The teacher didn't even want to hear Jamel's side of the story when he tried to explain. Jamel went home feeling picked on and unheard. He complained to his eldest sister, who was 14. He told her how he was feeling. He cried and told her he was sad and angry and he didn't know what to do. His sister told him to tell their mom. Jamel didn't want to do that because he didn't want to put more stress on their mom than she already had. Another day of unprovoked taunts and name-calling happened at Jamel's school. The once happy and confident little boy was at a low point. It was the lowest he had ever been. He got home, he pulled out a blue pencil and a piece of paper. He drew a stick figure of himself with one of his arms reaching out to the center of the page. In the center, he drew a stick figure picture of his mom. Between them, he drew a heart. And at the bottom of the page, he wrote the words, "I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I left you." On August 24th, 2018, 4 days after the school year started, Jamel ended his life. How Jamel ended his life is irrelevant. What is relevant is how little his school did to stop Jamel's bullying. After Jamel's death, the school's principal proudly told media how their school has a stringent anti-bullying program in place, and how the student body had at least 3 30-minute sessions of the program every week. The sessions were focused on kindness, character, relationships, and empathy. And yet the school's administration did not seem to aggressively enact any punishment towards bullies. Remember, their solution to Jamel's sister's harassers was to have Jamel watch over her. That was just deflecting the problem onto someone else, another child with similar problems. If the problem of bullies isn't met head-on, it's going to continue. Their kindness classes aren't going to do jack shit unless there's consequences for the perpetrators. A little over a week after Jamel's death, someone anonymously called the Colorado Child Abuse and Neglect Services to report Jamel's mother. They reported her for not getting her daughters needed counseling. They said she was neglecting them for not getting them the mental support they needed. The Department of Human Services worker assigned to the case, he found the allegations unwarranted, and he thought that it most likely was someone at the school trying to cover their ass. Denver Public School System launched an active investigation into the school, but the information contained in the report was deemed confidential. So what was the point behind investigating the school at all? The public should have access to that report. The only thing the Denver Public School System came out to say was this: in general, research indicates mental illness is the primary variable to suicide. No shit. What about what led the person to have that mental break? What if that cause should have been taken care of by the school? I take what they said to mean, whatever led to Jamel's mental break, the school district gets to wash their hands of it. Rest in power, Jamel. In Brisbane, Australia in 2016, a 12-year-old boy with bright blue eyes, a face full of freckles, and a tuft of auburn hair took his own life after being harassed verbally, mentally, and physically by his peers for being gay. Tyrone Unsworth was in the 7th grade at Apsley State High School. His best friend was a girl named Tanisha. Tanisha said that while all the boys our age liked to play in the dirt and make fun of the girls, Tyrone was different. He liked to play with the girls. 2 years earlier, at the age of 10, Tyrone's school had an event called Book Week. The kids were encouraged to come dressed up like a character that they felt inspired by in their favorite book. Tyrone went to school dressed as a fairy. He had even stopped at the school's garden to pick some flowers to put in his hair. This particular event is what started a daily barrage of harassment for Tyrone. That same day, 4 boys cornered Tyrone in the schoolyard. They started to call him gay, faggot, and of course, fairy. The boys even started to physically push Tyrone as they called him the names. Tyrone just wouldn't fight back. Seeing this, his friend Tanisha rushed at the boys, and she struck one of them with her fist. And then she demanded they all leave Tyrone be. Tanisha was praised by her mother for defending another child. But the school, they punished her for acting in violence. That's the situation that brought Tyrone and Tanisha together as best friends. Tyrone was an effeminate boy. He had a kind and gentle nature. His grandfather used to pick on him for it. He thought Tyrone was silly being out in the field chasing butterflies while the rest of his grandkids were on the grass playing soccer or some other kind of sport. Since the fairy incident, Tyrone received a lot of aggression from his schoolmates over the years, and he started to grow increasingly depressed. It seemed like the badgering never ended. Tyrone began to start his 7th grade classes in 2016. He existed through his normal of being ridiculed and teased for who he was. He made a post on Instagram, and it caused one of his friends some great worry about him. In the post, Tyrone wrote,
"If I killed myself, would anyone cry? Would anyone care? I wonder if they'd even notice."
His concerned friend told him to take the post down because it wasn't true. Other friends thought Tyrone was just joking. It seemed almost everyone in Tyrone's life was oblivious to his diminishing mental health. One day, Tyrone saw a girl being picked on by a couple of boys. One of the boys spat on the girl. Tyrone came right to her defense, and he admonished the boy who spat. The other boy walked off. He found a piece of wood and he brought it back and hit Tyrone. Tyrone was hit in his face and head several times. He was left unconscious and he suffered a broken jaw. This injury required an extensive surgery to repair. Tyrone spent at least a week in the hospital, and then a month recuperating at his grandparents' farm. Tyrone was scared to go back to school. He was frightened to see the boy who hurt him. Wishing Tyrone would toughen up, his grandfather informed him he'd be going back to school in a few days, so he best prepare himself. Tyrone kept hoping that the other boy would be made to leave the school because of the attack, but the other boy wasn't. The day before Tyrone was to return to school, he went fishing with one of his female friends. All of a sudden, Tyrone burst into tears. He told his friend everyone wants him dead. The friend asked why he would say that. Through his tears, Tyrone said,
"The kids keep telling me to kill myself."
The day Tyrone was to return back to school, His grandfather went to work, and when he returned home, he called for his grandson. He wanted to see how Tyrone's first day back went. When Tyrone didn't answer, his grandfather went to Tyrone's room. He thought Tyrone must have his headphones on and he's listening to music per usual. The grandfather opened the door to find Tyrone wasn't in his room. So the grandfather went out back, and there he found Tyrone. Tyrone had taken his own life. The principal of Tyrone's school addressed the media. The principal said that the school wasn't aware Tyrone was ever being bullied. The kid was knocked unconscious and had his jaw broken by another kid with a piece of wood. Tyrone wasn't even in school for over a month. His torment went on every day for 3 years. But you weren't aware Tyrone was getting bullied? None of your staff was aware Tyrone was being bullied? That sounds like a huge serving of bullshit to me. I looked up Tyrone's school's website, and to this day, they don't seem to offer any type of inclusion program for children who might be LGBTQ+. In the school's mission statement, it says its beliefs are every student should have a right to access high-quality learning and teaching in a safe environment. Where was Tyrone's safe environment? Rest in power, Tyrone.
Go kill yourself, white trash.
Die, Leslie.
Kill yourself, dyke.
These are just a few of the venomous spewings 13-year-old Lily Clara McClish had to endure since she came out as a lesbian a year earlier at the age of 12. Lily attended a middle school in Moab, Utah in 2017. There were 3 boys in particular that launched this hate campaign directed at Lily. With these verbal and written attacks on social media, via text, and in person, Lily understandably became more sullen and depressed. Being a teenager is no easy task in itself, but to be berated such as this made it even more difficult. Lily began to cut herself. We know that self-harm is a way for someone to have control over themselves when they're feeling distressed. It's also a way for the cutter to release those painful emotions. Lily was a very moral girl. She had been outraged at the social injustice of students of color and of the LGBTQ+ kids at her school. Lily was trying to make a difference, and she was trying to do something about it, because Lily felt that the teachers and school administration were doing nothing. She felt it firsthand, so she was correct. Lily eventually told her mother about cutting herself. Her mother had no idea of the amount of bullying Lily suffered from daily. Lily received texts and social media DMs at all times of day or night. They were filled with lesbian slurs and taunts that she should kill herself because she's a monster. Concerned about her daughter's depression and the cutting, her mother got Lily in with the school's therapist. The therapist felt the sessions with Lily were going really well, that they were making progress. The therapist had no idea Lily was losing steam. In January of 2017, when school reconvened after winter break, Lily's school awarded her the prestigious Student of the Month award for Lily's work in trying to promote tolerance for LGBTQ+ students and students of color. Within 2 weeks of receiving this award, Lily would take her own life. 3 years after Lily's death, her mom reports great strides have been made in the area of mental health offerings for students at Lily's school, and also the surrounding schools. Lily's school now has 10 therapists available to meet with the kids who might be suffering from depression or other mental health concerns. This is wonderful, but I worry the instigators of the attacks towards the kids being bullied are not being investigated and automatically required to see these therapists. Because it would seem to me for someone to inflict this mental harm upon another individual, these students are the true individuals who need the mental help. These schools I've spoken about so far are allowing the injuries to happen, and then they're just putting a Band-Aid on after the damage has occurred. Shouldn't they be containing the weapon so the damage never happens? Bigger strides still need to happen before more children take their own lives. Rest in power, Lily. In May 2015, a 14-year-old boy from Poland named Dominik Szymanski took his life. It was due to constantly being called gay slurs and having rocks thrown at him by classmates. Yes, Dominik was gay, but Poland stands extremely conservative with their views on the LGBTQ+ community, in spite of it being legalized in 1932. After Dominik's death, an anti-hate protest was held in front of the Ministry of Education building, to which the Minister of Education herself made an appearance, and she deflected away any allegations of wrongdoing by the school. She turned the conversation to what wonderful work the Ministry of Education is currently doing. Okay, Lady Trump, way to change the topic onto how wonderful you are. A bright spot after Dominik's death, the Polish government agreed that people targeted because of their sexual orientation or gender identity deserve the enhanced protection purportedly offered by hate crime laws. Rest in power, Dominik.
If I die, I don't want to be remembered as the sad person I was, okay? I don't want to be remembered as the faggot gay girl with all the scars on her arm. Unfortunately, that's who I am to a lot of people. If those people would have just stayed silent and kept their ignorant thoughts in their heads, then maybe I wouldn't have those scars. Maybe. It wasn't always about what they had in their heads. It was what was inside mine, too. I just didn't understand why I felt like I did. I had a decent life. Just remember me as someone who understood and stayed strong as long as I could. Please be who you are. Do it for yourself. Do it for your happiness. That's what matters in your life. You don't need approval on who you are. Don't let people or society change you. Don't let people or society change who you are just because they're not satisfied with your image.
These are the words of 16-year-old Ash Hafner from Charlotte, North Carolina. Ash had been conflicted by their own gender identity since the age of 13. Ash was born a biological female, but never really felt comfortable in a female body. Ash just needed a fucking minute to figure life out.
He, she, it, thing. I'm just as confused as you are. Don't be so quick jumping to labels. My pronouns do not define me. But when you ask me if I'm a boy or a girl, I don't know how to answer. I haven't even identified yet, so just leave me alone and call me Ash.
This was also written by Ash. Ash was a talented musician who played the guitar, wrote songs, and sang. In 8th grade, there's pictures of Ash in a turquoise dress on a dance floor with a boy. Ash had shoulder-length hair then. A few months later, Ash declared themselves a lesbian and had a girlfriend. The following year in 9th grade, Ash cut their hair really short and asked to be called by male pronouns. Ash and their mother, who was very supportive in anything Ash decided to do, talked about male names and legally changing their name from Ashlyn Alexis to Ashton Alexander. The following week, Ash's mind had changed. When Ash cut their hair and began to wear baggy pants, oversized t-shirts with a flannel shirt over it, that's when the harassment at school from both peers and adults began. Ash could hear the mutters of, "Is it a boy or a girl?" The mother of one of Ash's good friends didn't want Ash being anywhere near her daughter. The mother was afraid that Ash would turn her daughter gay. And this is where educating people is so important. You can't change people into something they're not. By the 10th grade, when Ash was a sophomore, the girls in the PE locker room refused to change around Ash because Ash made them feel uncomfortable. This hurt Ash deeply. And Ash stopped changing for gym and just took the demerit marks for that class. The hurt and pain Ash suffered wasn't a solitary incident, but an accumulation of different events that led to their self-harm, and eventually to take their own life. The night of February 26, 2015, Ash had sent multiple texts to friends, and she told them, "I'm done. I'm ready to die." A panicked friend who received this text quickly called Ash's mom. Ash's mom started to search the house for Ash. When she couldn't find Ash anywhere, she ran outside to check the yards. When she was in the front yard, she saw a commotion down the street and headlights on the road. Ash's mom ran down the street to find Ash laying near the curb. Ash had thrown themselves in front of a Jeep that was driving down the street. Ash was rushed to the Carolinas Medical Center, where they passed away early the next morning. Rest in power, Ash. 15-year-old Nigel Shelby was openly gay at his high school in Huntsville, Alabama, and Nigel was openly made fun of by many classmates. Being gay wasn't the only thing going against Nigel in the conservative South of Alabama. Nigel was black. Nigel's classmates relentlessly picked on him for being both gay and black. Nigel had a hard time accepting himself as well. He'd ask his mom, "Mama, why couldn't I just be normal?" His mama would tell him, "Baby, you are normal. Who you love has nothing to do with the person you are." Nigel had a few friends. They were all girls. But he wasn't popular in spite of his gorgeous smile. When Nigel was physically or verbally bullied, he'd go to the school office to speak with the school's administration. He was taught when you had a problem, go to an authority figure that can help you. Nigel's complaints to the adults that were supposed to help him turned into conversations about how Nigel's sexuality was a choice. He could choose a much easier life for himself by not presenting gay. For Nigel, being himself wasn't a choice. It was the only thing he knew how to be, even if he hated it sometimes. Nigel started to feel very alone and hopeless as the destruction of his self-esteem continued, both by students and school faculty. On April 18, 2019, Nigel took his own life. An hour or so after Nigel was found dead, the school called his mother's house and told her to look through Nigel's backpack for a suicide note. At least one adult at that school knew Nigel had planned to end his life, and they could have stopped it, but they didn't. Nigel's mom has gone on to pursue a lawsuit against Nigel's school. Of course, the school stated that they never received any complaints from Nigel or his mom that he was being bullied, and they worked very hard to make sure Nigel felt at home at Huntsville High School. That's called CYA, cover your ass. But not everyone bought into that, including the civil action attorneys representing Nigel's mom. Nigel's mom's lawsuit is still in the courts, and it's pending an outcome. Sometimes the only way to get change within a school is to talk to their bank account. Rest in power, Nigel. I've only covered 6 of the thousands upon thousands of cases just like these, warriors. Each story is as heartbreaking as the next. I feel until we can get public and private schools in sync to teach acceptance, fuck tolerance, I want acceptance. Until they start practicing inclusion of all sexual and gender identities, This age-old problem of harassing kids not considered normal will continue. Bullies need to be looked into by the schools. We need to start where the problem lies. And until it's not only addressed but eradicated, our future is not safe. If you or someone you know is suffering from harassment or you have thoughts of suicide, please look at the phone numbers I've listed in my show notes. There'll be some international numbers in there as well. Before I close out, there is something I wanted to share with you. This story, very timely, just popped up in my newsfeed yesterday. It's about two dads and their gay son. The son was going to a middle school in New York. It's called the Albert Shanker School for Visual and Performing Arts. Well, the boy, when he started the school, he came out as gay as well. He's a foster child, actually. And the two dads were a perfect fit for him. For 2 years at that school, the boy experienced bullying and hostility from both his peers and educators. The fathers think partially because his parents are gay as well as he being gay. His peers would pick on him for acting like a girl. They'd call him things like faggot ass and little bitch. And some even told him that he'd be damned to go to hell by God because of his lifestyle. When the school's administrators were complained to about this, they decided that the kid complaining wasn't being bullied, and that the remark about being destined to burn in hell was just a difference in opinion. And still the damn bullying kept going on. The boy even considered suicide. The dean of the school told the two dads and the boy that it was inappropriate to mention the boy's sexual orientation at school. And she also said that if the boy didn't talk about being gay in school, then these things wouldn't happen. So now this school in Queens, New York is in a whole pile of shit because they didn't protect the boy. The dads are coming at him and suing him. And thankfully, the boy's in a high school now. The dads say it's like night and day. He's treated so much better at his new school. Anyway, I just wanted to share that real quick because it was such a coinkydink that it popped up in my newsfeed. This episode's Crime Quickie took place in Portugal, March of 2020. It's a rainbow crime currently undergoing unicorn justice. 19-year-old Maria Malviero and her 23-year-old lover Mariana Fonseca lured a 21-year-old hotel worker named Diogo Goncalves into a trap. The girls promised Diogo a lap dance if he took them home with him. Diogo had met the girls, and apparently Diogo liked to talk. He told the girls he had just lost someone close to him, and he had inherited a large sum of money. Diogo, thinking that his luck was about to change, brought the lesbians home with him. The women who were inspired by the TV show Dexter offered Diogo a drink, and unbeknownst to him, the drink was spiked with drugs. Not long after ingesting this drink, Diogo passed out. Taking turns, the women strangled Diogo to death. Then the women proceeded to dismember Diogo's body into pieces. However, they kept a finger available to use as an ID to Diogo's phone. The women disposed of Diogo's torso immediately into the sea, but they kept his head, forearms, hands, legs, and feet in 2 different cars. One of the cars was their car, and the other car was Diogo's. Maria and Mariana kept those body parts in the cars for 5 days before they tossed them into a waterfall. Then they parked Diogo's car near the cliffs, so when he was finally discovered missing, it would make it look like he had ended his own life. Using the finger they kept, they were able to get into Diogo's phone, and they were also able to access Diogo's bank account. They cleared the account of over $77,000. The women were also able to access Diogo's Facebook account, and they made posts from his account which led his family members to not suspect anything. A couple of weeks later, parts of Diogo's body started to float to the tops of waterways. Fairly certain Diogo didn't take his own life and then dismember himself, police began an intensive investigation into Diogo's murder. 19-year-old Maria and her 23-year-old girlfriend Mariana were found. They were arrested and charged with murder, desecration to a corpse, theft, fraud, and use of a stolen vehicle. Their trial awaits. Them some crazy bitches, warriors. Love you guys. And remember, it's not a crime to be gay. Unless you're a murderer.